Hey, Mystic Magic fans. We are up for another great episode today with my friend, Mary Beth Speer, Reverend Mary Beth Speer. And our topic is science, service, and spiritual leadership. We'll have fun today. Stay tuned. Hey, Mystic Magic podcasters. We are up for another wonderful time today. Our guest is the Reverend Mary Beth Speer. My friend, she is an ordained religious science minister. She's a metaphysical teacher. She's a mentor and a writer. She's been a New Thought leader in the human potential movement for 30 years. And she's been focusing on the intersection between science and spirituality. Well, she's co-pastored 2 religious science centers for over 14 years. She's presently involved in religious science and unity churches in Chicagoland, speaking and leading study groups and accredited classes. And she currently serves on the board of directors for the affiliated New Thought Network, also referred to as Anton. She's received dual bachelor and master's degrees in religious studies from the Emerson Theological Institute. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Hi, Celeste. It's good to see you.
Yes, I'm glad to see you. Yeah. So listen, you've been in this human potential movement for over 30 years. What called you to do this work for humanity?
I thought about that question because you preloaded that question for me. And, Celeste, I think it was pretty organic. It wasn't something where I set out to pursue it. It's as if it pursued me. I thought back on how life leaves clues, and I mean, even all the way back when I was 19 and I went to a junior college and I didn't know what in God's name I was going to take. And one of the first things I took was comparative religions. Started taking philosophy. I've gone down the rabbit hole a number of different ways. Started as a very conventional Methodist, which I didn't even really understand what that meant, and then just became very eclectic. Everything from going clear in Scientology back in the 70s, all the way through to giving up all forms of organized religion or disorganized religion. And probably the thing that really started me back on my path was when I got pregnant with my now 36-year-old son. And I started reading Out on a Limb. And Shirley MacLaine had me with hello on that one. And shortly after that, my then husband introduced me to Unity churches, and I started going to a little Unity church out in a place called La Crescenta in California. You probably know where that is. Yeah. And it just I've been on the path ever since. Kept going.
Well, you've had an interest in the intersection between science and spirituality. Tell me more about what that means to you.
Well, I think I'm more the techie than the mystical in my pursuit of my own spirituality. I feel so excited when I can understand quantum physics, and I begin to realize that has been intuited all the way back through the very beginning of time, very beginning of revelations in mankind. The fact that Jesus could talk about the mustard seed and moving the mountain, just to me was the wave to the particle, if you will. I think one of the things that really was a hook in my mouth was when I listened to the book tape by Gary Zukav, the Dancing Woolly Masters. And I was never good at math. I was never good at science. But when he said something in there, he said, physics without the math is pure enchantment. Wow. And so I got very excited about it, and I began to really pursue it from there. And then, of course, I found science of mind, and I've always loved that aspect. I found Judge Thomas Troward. I fell in love with Troward. And so it's just, to me, it's a weave, and it's a time it's our time. The time has come for it. the idea that science and
So,
spirituality would walk hand in hand.
well, it always has been. We're just coming to a greater realization of it
That
as
we're
it's
aware of it.
become so impossible to deny.
Mm-hmm.
You said you follow Troward, so you're more interested in the law aspect of the science of mind teaching. Would you like to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think the reason that I felt so enamored with the law is because of the fact that a law is neutral, that it is not something that moves around. For me, up until the time I got into metaphysics, my God was outside of me. And it was the atypical, the judge, the man with the beard, was always a little pissed off, if you will, a little ticked off at whoever was not in its favor. And it was very capricious. And I couldn't understand that. When I found the law and I began to understand principle and the fact that things don't move around in the law, it's always going to be there. There's ways we can explore law and understand more fully the laws that we are working with, so that they can work for us better because we are more obedient to them and we learn more about it, is very different than the idea that laws change.
Right, because you got like spiritual laws and you got physical laws.
Mm-hmm.
Physical laws like buoyancy and aerodynamics and spiritual laws like the law of correspondence, the law of cause and effect,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. Now, what is it about teaching metaphysics that you enjoy?
Because I learn it as I teach it. If there's any one thing I feel really compelled to do, it's to teach it. I just feel like a fish in water when I'm able to sit and talk to people. I one of my favorite modalities of teaching, quite frankly, is to do study group. I've been doing book study groups. I began really understanding a lot of metaphysics and actually did Course in Miracles and several other wonderful books, including studying the book of the Bible of Revelations, through a wonderful group of women, older women, in fact. Some of them were actually over 100 years old, although I
Oh,
didn't know it at the time, and they came out of the Glendale Church of Religious Science. So back in the 80s, early 90s, I was doing study group with a whole group of women, and we would actually sit and read a book, and we would not just read the book, we would ingest and embody it. And that became such a fun and wonderful way for me to explore metaphysics that I've kept that up for years. In fact, I do a Monday morning book group at a Unity Church here in Chicago that's going on over 5 years now. And I even have an in-home book group of friends that get together here in my home that have been meeting every Tuesday for over 7 years. So we read books and we read them paragraph by paragraph. We're doing it by Zoom now because of the
right,
COVID-19. And
right.
we don't, I always say I'm the most economical book club you can join, because it takes a very long time to get through a book because we park
But
on it.
yeah, but you make it personal. It's not just a kind of a cursory exercise.
We do. We do.
So you've ministered two religious science centers, and we know the ministry is no cakewalk.
Yeah.
You've also been involved in organizational leadership, first for Centers for Spiritual Living, and now for the affiliation of New Thought Network.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you wanting to serve both as a spiritual servant, but also in organizational leadership?
Well, again, it feels innate.
Mm.
It feels like what I'm here to do. I find a lot of joy in service. What I, I mean, the form of church got very tedious. So that's one of the reasons I walked away from pulpit ministry, and that was about 8 years ago. I discovered I was spending more time making and forming the church than I was really able to experience being the minister of the church. And that came more out of my my needing to do, as opposed to my needing to be. It's
Right.
interesting. I actually was with Religious Science International, and at a time where Religious Science International and United Churches came together, we integrated, and then we became the Centers for Spiritual Living. And after I left Centers for Spiritual Living as a pulpit minister, I had two pulpits, one in Religious Science International and then through Centers for Spiritual Living. After I left the pulpit, I continued for another year to serve as a regional support coordinator for Centers for Spiritual Living for the Midwest. And I actually took this volunteer position and kind of turned it into a full-time job. And I realized after that, part of the reason that I was doing that was because I needed to have something to say when people would say, "What are you doing now?"
Oh.
And so I realized I needed to be doing something. So the part about leading or being part of the ability to move New Thought movement forward is why I do what I do.
Okay.
It's not so much because I want to have to be a leader of it. It's just that I feel this organization, the whole movement itself is so vital. And it's one of the ways that I can help serve the movement moving.
Great.
I'm not sure if that mad rant came across well. But
Well, what I heard you say was it may have started off to be a little bit busy work.
mm-hmm.
It really is about moving the movement forward.
Yeah.
What do you like about the affiliation of New Thought Network?
Well, the Anton is the affiliated New Thought Network. It's an organization that actually was founded in 1992, and its founders, some of them came out of, well, it began really being a religious science organization and teaching the science of mind in a more freer form, perhaps, than the organizations of United or Religious Science International were able to teach it, because both United and Religious Science International had a framework, and the people that came out of Religious Science International and United and formed Anton wanted more freedom of the ability for pastors to be able to be more creative in their teaching, to have more freedom in their ability to be their own authorities in their churches. So back in those days, I still remember being a pastor with RSI, and there was even a little bit of a kind of a smugness amongst us where we thought of them as a no rules club. It was an alternative way to go do what we all were doing, but without the form. I've come to have so much love for Anton, and I first came to know Dr. Angelo Pizzello, who's been a part of Anton for a very long time, and he and his wife, Dr. Stella Pizzello, founded the Emerson Theological Institute. And the Emerson Theological Institute is actually a teaching aspect of Anton, but they're not the same organization. And Angelo has been described as New Thought's uncommon yes. Those who come to Dr. Angie, we call them, those who come to Dr. Angie with the idea of ministry, some form, some new way of doing New Thought, and his answer is, let's make it happen. Mm-hmm. It wasn't, how can we make that you have fit into what we already have created? The first time I ever met the people in Anton was back in, I think it was probably about 2011 or 12, something like that. And I just found them to be the warmest, most loving, open group of people. They just, the cliche, they had me at hello.
Well, to be on the board can be pretty intense. It sounds like it might be a little bit more relaxed if you're in an Anton environment.
Well, being on the board with it is again, I'm back in the form. But I have to say, with Anton, we've always had a credo that consciousness is the sole authority and love points the way. And
Great.
I have found that even though we have our moments, any organization where you have free thinkers, like people who are new thought, who come together to create something, there's going to be a lot of opinions in that group. And we're not a board that votes to consensus, although I would say that pretty much just about anything we've ever voted on, we do arrive at that unanimous vote, but not without the work. And the Anton we came together this year and had a board retreat. We meet once a year for a retreat of about 4 days, and we come together face to face. The rest of our meetings are by Zoom. And we actually looked at where we were going, and Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones, who has been a facilitator for my groups and for my husband and I a few times on our own to help us move to the next dimension, if you will, actually came in and worked with our group on creating a new vision statement, discerning a new vision statement, a new direction for Anton. And what we realize we are all about at this point in this juncture of time is our new vision is uniting the New Thought movement. And the expanded version of that vision is uniting the New Thought movement through the conscious evolution of every member.
But a New Thought movement is not just religious science. Isn't unity and divine science and other people involved?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And all are welcome in Anton. There was no one that isn't, there are no organizations. In fact, we do have unity folks. We do have religious science folks. We do have some divine science folks. We've got independent ministries in Anton.
Right.
The whole idea is
people.
I'm sorry?
Any home of truth people?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Not yet, maybe. Okay, I don't know. Okay. But with the whole idea about uniting is that there are no guard walls between us. We're all, New Thought shares the same precepts. We have the same realization of the one mind, the one God, the one principle, the overarching presence out of which all arises, out of which we all we live, move, and have our being, and that our thoughts are creative and our thoughts are things. There's no differentiation between one thought school or denomination of New Thought over another. Some of the separation, I think, has come about with the idea that each organization, Unity, United Churches of Religious Science, now Centers for Spiritual Living, Divine Science, the organized religions have their own teaching path. And there's no incompatibility with that in Anton. All can be members of Anton and still be part of their denomination.
Gotcha. Look, I'm coming back home to Chicago soon, and thankfully the weather will be better. But how do you get through the gloomy months of winter? What do you do spiritually that keeps the light within alive?
Oh, weather is part of my master class, I guess you could say. I learn a lot with my discontent with winter. When you think about what I came out of, I grew up in Southern California. I know you and I have both been California people. I grew up in Southern California. I had never shoveled snow, and I didn't even know what a snowblower was. And when we accepted the call to come back and assume a work here in the suburbs of Chicago, I had no idea what I was coming into. But that was 13 years ago. So one of the first things I had Michael do was take me to Home Depot, and we bought a snow blower, and I've been at it ever since.
But internally, there's a way for you to generate your own warmth and to kind of foster your own wisdom. Sometimes during winter months, we have more opportunities to be still and know, as it were.
I'm just wondering, are you asking me, so you getting ready for winter again? Or?
No, I'm ready to embrace summer.
Yeah, I think, for me, there's a lot of sweetness in the winter. I did actually go out and buy one of these happy lamps. or because there was a winter where we really had a lot of our winters in Chicago, as you well know, are not just cold, they're gloomy. Overcast days blend into overcast days, plus there's short days. So when I am able to really do my work, which I do more work and during the winter probably even than I do during the summer on my consciousness, I like to think of it more as almost like cave time. Winter for me is a time where I can be more introspective. It gives me permission to just sit and read a book and to just be beyond that, just to sit and think, and to not feel like there's anything I need to go do other than the snow. go move the snow and then come back and sit and think.
What would you like our audience to know about what you're doing? Do you want to let us know about the website to Anton, or any particular class or event that's coming up that you want people to attend or look at?
Well, Affiliated New Thought Network does have a web or a Facebook for community happenings, and people can go to the Anton Facebook community happenings, and there's a wonderful ever-growing aggregate list of the Zoom classes, the Zoom services that are being done. It's a very, very uplifting Facebook opportunity. You can just fall down into that rabbit hole and come out feeling a lot better for it. There's also a website that we've just been restructuring our website. And the website you can get to just going to newthought.org, and it takes you right into our Anton website, and you can just play around in there and go to the directory and see the wonderful collective eclectic group of members that we are.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I so appreciate you being with me today, my friend. I miss you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the not too distant future. And I really appreciate your yes and your diligence and your commitment to truth and spirituality. And give my love to Michael and the dogs and everybody else.
Well, I'm excited. Celeste, I'm so excited you're coming home. Sweet home, Chicago, right? Are you looking forward to coming home?
This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives. This is my poem entitled Surrender. I sit beneath the pine trees. My eyes rest on the mountaintop as the clouds usher in the sun until the light expands to fill the skies with its brilliance. The butterfly, no longer cloaked in its wings of shelter, rests on the ground. It seems to have surrendered to its death. I turn away in sadness and allow the crickets to serenade me. My eyes return to see the butterfly has gone. It found its flight in its surrender. It lives beyond the visible eternally. That poem, Surrender, is in my book, In Spirit, in Love, available to you on Amazon.com. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Celeste A. Frazier, and this is Mystic Magic. We'll be back next week when the topic is freedom, and our guest will be the young, intuitive, enthusiastic, and absolute joy, Reverend Abigail Scherer. Please see our show notes for more information about today's topics at mysticmagic.buzzsprout.com. Please leave a review if you'd like. For more podcasts, please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. If this episode has been good for you, feel free to support the show. You can also find Mystic Magic at Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and other great podcast venues. This is Mystic Magic, exploring our spirit to understand our lives.